Liz Hardwick is one of the UK's most popular tech trainers. And if you've ever been lucky enough to see her train in person, you'll understand why. She's incredibly smiley, very down to earth, and is a real approachable expert. But she prides herself on being able to demystify tech so that everybody is able to be digitally included. Her unique and impressive training style has led her to be acknowledged by some of the top lists in the UK, and she has appeared in the Tech Women 100, the Tech World's top 3 UK women in tech speakers, BC's 101 female founders in tech, and Digital Leaders UK 100. She describes herself as a digital productivity specialist, and that is what she's here to talk to us about today. She's looking at top integrations and automations for boosting productivity. And if I know Liz, it's going to be a hugely enjoyable session. So please join me in welcoming the fabulous Liz Hardwick.
Hi everyone, welcome to this ES Tech 2022 session on top integrations and automations for boosting productivity. This will be an interactive session, so please get the downloadable, get a pen and paper to hand. We're going to go through some exercises. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to have some prompts. We're going to do a little bit of work together. And we're going to focus on a few key points with the next just short on an hour together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get straight into the content and we're going to get going. So in this session, we're going to look at how to review and optimize your current workflows for optimal effects. It's good to see where you are right now and start from the very beginning before launching into integrations and automations. Now, it's always useful for us to set the scene and figure out actually what is the difference between the two, because sometimes it's not actually as obvious as you think. And some examples for free and low cost tools that actually can help you in streamlining and automating your tasks and your processes. And we'll go through some really nice examples in our session together today. So let's start with the definitions. So I want us just to all understand what the differences are. So I've already used some phrases in the title of this session. We've used phrases as well that we might all not necessarily understand what each one is. So I wanted to just break them down for you so we know what we're talking about in this session today. So digital workflow is the series of steps in the process. So a workflow is the steps that you go through. A digital workflow is the digital elements within that process. So there still might be some manual elements included in that, but the digital workflow is the steps that you use. Digital integrations are where two things integrate and talk to each other. Now here in this example, we're using standard format. So they understand and talk to each other in a very streamlined way. So you might have seen, if you've ever logged into any tools, a tab called integrations, and that's where we normally link two things together and they integrate. An integration is a type of automation. Integration is where it's almost like the default things that talk to each other. Automations go one step further. They might have multiple steps in a process. They might also have several distribution processes that they're trying to get to. So we'll look at both of these in the session, and the automation being parts of those processes, and then just understanding the difference. So as we go through the session, just so we all know a little bit more about the introductions of the definitions we're going to use. So I've introduced you to the definitions. I'd love to introduce you to me as well. Hello to those of you who I've not met before. My name's Liz Hardwick, and I'm very happy to be back joining ES Tech for 2022. So I am a digital and productivity specialist, specializing in digital productivity. So using digital to help you reclaim your time, energy, and focus. I'm also a professional speaker and speak at conferences around the world and online, and also helped entrepreneurs, teams, and businesses help reclaim that time and be really more focused with these sorts of digital productivity tools. So hopefully you're in the right hands. I have automated some of the processes within my business, and I absolutely love helping people. This is just a scratching the surface of the things that we're going to talk about today in terms of workflow integration and automation. I'll share with you my contact details at the end if you'd like to talk more about bespoke training or getting me in to speak at a conference more specifically around your bespoke needs. But hopefully that'll give you a little bit of a flavour for me for now. So we'll get started in thinking about workflow. We start talking about workflow before we start talking about automation and integration, because I think it is really important to see what you've already got available to you. This doesn't only save you time and money, but it also saves you energy as well, because what you might find is the tools that you already have at your disposal potentially do the job that you're looking for. As a stat here, 64% of features in the products are rarely or never used. So we're only starting to really use a small percentage of what each program does. So if you've ever used MS Teams, for example, and never used the praise option, do you know what that is? Is that that's an added feature that's part of it, but most people have never even heard of it or used it. So there's loads of examples like that. So that's why I want you to start off thinking about workflow first and what tools you're using. So digital review. So a digital workflow review, if you will, that's a whole session in itself. So I just want to give you some pointers in terms of questions to take away. You'll find these questions in the downloadable PDF as part of this session, or if you've got a pen and paper to hand or digital notes to hand, you might want to just think about some of these questions. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes now to just reflect on some of these processes, some of these thoughts that you're going through. So I'm going to go through each question and give you a tiny little bit of time just to think about it. This in itself is a separate session, and this might be an activity you want to take away and spend some time with your team and your execs and maybe the wider business scenario as well. So it's always worth having a think about. You might feel like you can't answer some of these questions, but have a good guess just for now. And then we're going to move on to picking a particular process that we're going to work on together today. So what programs are you already using? So this goes a bit hand in hand with that stat just then about the 64%. How many percentages of those features do you think you're using? So if you're using Outlook, are you like 90% using absolutely every feature, or you know of every feature and have decided to dismiss it? That can also be part of the conversation as well. Or do you feel like Excel, I'm only using 10% of it? I know there's loads of functionality in there, but I'm not using it, or I'm choosing not to use it, or I don't know enough about it. So that can be a good gauge on what you're already having access to. Also, what are you currently paying for? What is going out month on month on month? What are you as an organisation potentially spending thousands of pounds a month on that maybe you're not even using? So that might be accounts department that you have to ask, that maybe is IT. That might actually help in terms of, if you're in a bigger organisation, the wider scheme of things in terms of how digital really resonates across the board and across your different departments. What programs are you currently paying for and currently not using? What do you have access to that you're not using? So you might be paying for it, you might have access to it, it might be free resource, but you're not using it, because sometimes actually not using a tool can be a signal to why we're not using it. Does it need to be automated? Does it need to have an integration as part of it? And then I know you'll love these two questions. What tools do you need to support you in streamlining? So what do you need? And what tools would you like to make your life easier? So there's a bit of a want versus need there, because there might be something that actually would make your day-to-day processes automating, or something that actually speeds up your processes so you can spend more time on the important human stuff versus all of these day-to-day processes that actually could be an automation system in itself. So hopefully that's been a couple of minutes now. You've had an idea of some of the notes, some of the thoughts that you've managed to maybe brainstorm as we've gone through that. So hopefully that will be a little starter document that you can build on as we go. And if you've struggled to think about what a workflow might be within your organization or company, here's some examples. So you might want to just pick one for now if you're coming up empty in terms of ideas of workflow that you'd like to process. We'll have a few examples in this session where I'll go into detail about what can be automated and what can be integrated in itself as well. So there's some ideas to get you going there that you can always watch on replay later as well. So having done that little activity, what initial thoughts did those digital review questions prompt? Have you found yourself saying, I spend so many hours a week doing this process? If this process could be automated, I would save myself X amount of hours. And that X amount of hours of you doing a potentially quite simplistic process-driven job that actually, you know, a computer could do that would alleviate some of your time to do on more important things. How do we maximize that time? Can we automate some of those systems? So what I'd like you to do is have a think about that. Maybe that is bringing in some of the other team members within your organization to have a wider conversation. It's always a good opportunity once you've come and done some training with a session like this to go, well, Liz from Digit Enable was saying the other day that actually it'd be really good if we could do a digital review. So yeah, go ahead and use me as that opportunity. You should be doing a digital review either 3 months or every 6 months, at least at the bare minimum every 12 months. If you're not doing that, you are potentially missing out on opportunities to reclaim time, energy and focus, and especially money as well, if for those platforms that you're paying a lot for and not using. Okay, so what I want you to do is pick one workflow or one setup that you want to focus on optimizing today. So we're going to give you some examples, and hopefully I've picked enough examples that I think might align with the types of example workflows that you want to focus on. So what I want you to do now is just spend 30 seconds or so drawing out your workflow. What are the steps in that process if you haven't already? What steps are in the process? What tools are you using? What software, what solutions? Is it still paper-based at the moment, but you want to make it digital-based? Actually, some of those workflow things, as we showed that definition right at the very start, is about taking those paper-based, manual-based systems and making them digital. You will be sold on that for many years, I know. You'll all be digital already, but then it's going that one step further and going, okay, well, we've got this old archaic digital system. How do we make that digital system better? How do we automate some of those systems? So just getting a pen and a piece of paper and drawing out that workflow could be really beneficial, just to get your thoughts down onto paper and actually see what each different step in that process is. Because sometimes what we do, we can take for granted. And sometimes we might just go, oh, I'm just going to email the calendar booking system. It's just going to work. Really? But how many steps in that process were there? You wanted to create an email, and there was an automation that linked the two together. And then what was the end bit? So we'll go a little bit further into how we do that. And if you're finding pen and paper brilliant, or you might not have a pen and paper and you're thinking, gosh, I want a digital solution to this, Liz. Well, you'll know me by now that I love a digital solution to many things, and there's some great fun creative brainstorming apps out there. So if you are doing this piece of work with other people and you want to get them to work together with you, more collaborative effort, it's in the days when we were in person all the time and we used to have walls with sticky notes on. We've got a few examples there. Some of you might have heard of the platform called Canva. That's the logo in the bottom right hand corner. That's a great graphics package, very templated. So if you want to design some graphics or posters, they're a really nice kind of go-to, really simple. They also have things like workflows and digital documents and ebooks as well. So you've got a lot to work with depending on what your workflow is you want to work on. And then if you are at that brainstorming stage of creating that digital steps within the workflow, two here that I really love is Miro and Milanote. So I'll put the links in the document for you, so you can download that and click on those links later on. So have a go at those ones if you are doing collaborative work and you're not always in the same space. These tools can be really useful. So there's some added top tips in there as well, because I just love those tools. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to look at the optimizing of the workflows now. So hopefully by now you've got an idea of some of the workflows that you're working on. You've done a bit of a quick digital review of what you're using or what you have access to but you're not using, maybe a bit of what you need and what you want. So now we'll drill down a little bit further into optimizing a workflow. So this is a real world example of my goal setting and tracking workflow. This actually was a thing. And some of you, when you've drawn out that workflow now, will have done it quite linear. It'll have been in one direction. For me, it ended up being cyclical. So I was forever doing this. So I'll explain this just as a little scenario. When I had a meeting with my team, I would go into Notepad++, very similar to Notepad, just a little bit more modern version. At the end of the session, I would also then put it into to-do list, right? What tasks do I actually need to complete? So I would create those. And then if we're having meetings with other people, external, so say my business mentor, we'd put it in an Excel spreadsheet and send it to him. And then what I'd do is I'd create an Asana board, so project management tool, and I would put everyone's tasks in there and assign each individual different tasks. And then because I got so overwhelmed with that, I then looked back into my notepad and went, right, what are my 3 things I'm going to do today, Liz? And then I would type those into my little notepad, 3 things to do today. And I would really just whittle it down into that. So you can see I'm using 4 different programs there for what should be quite a simple process. So at this point, I was like, there must be a quicker way than this. If you ever hear yourself catching yourself saying, there must be a quicker way, can we not automate this? This is a process I'm doing day in, day out. So if any of those things you start to hear yourself saying, this is the time to do that digital review and think about your workflow. So I took this and created just one tool for the job. I picked Asana. So I was already using Asana, had good intentions, I'd started using it to do group things, but I hadn't fully committed to using that one tool. In a way, yes, you should give yourself maybe a couple of months to integrate, to get people to know how it works, to have training on a particular tool if you need people to come in. Like we do a load of Asana training with people. So it might be bring us in, you do the Asana training so everyone knows what the tool is. You're not just expecting people to know how to use it. And then you say there is a cutoff where we're going to stop using all of the rest of the tools and we're just going to use this one tool. Sometimes that time, if it drags on too much, can end up where there's a bit of a mess and no one knows where anything is. And you end up starting to get into this habit of trying to search in folders and different files and different programs because you don't know where that piece of data is. So just everyone knowing where that one particular thing is that they're using actually will save time globally within the team anyway. So I was like, right, I'm going to commit to Asana because actually all of it needs to be in Asana. I can get rid of the Excel spreadsheet by just inviting the people to the certain boards that they need to see. Why am I copying and pasting and sticking into an Excel spreadsheet when they could just have access to the particular board with the particular bit of information on? Notepad was my comfort zone. I defaulted to that. I'm sure you've got a default where you go, I'm just going to write a note. And whatever that bit is normally your default. So for me, it's a Notepad++. So I needed to get into the habit of, instead of going Notepad, I needed to go Asana as the default. So there's habits involved. You might need training. You might just need people to get used to it and like, right, what is the thing that I need to do? Where does it need to go? What is the process that's involved? And then default into Asana. And then actually, did I want to use Todoist or did it actually just need to all be in Asana? And I needed to have that confidence that everything was in there. So some thoughts for you to take your workflow and think about, maybe are there any bits in that process that we could actually get rid of completely. And then for the things that you want to keep, what do we want to automate? What steps in that process straight away have you gone, oh, I do this particular bit from A to B every day. Is there a thing that I could automate that? So going back to the automation versus integrations, we have quite a few tools at our disposal. Third-party tools like things like Zapier or Zapier, depending on what part of the world you're from, you call it different things. IFTTT is if this then that, very similar tools. I have a preference on Zapier. I find that's a little bit more intuitive to understand. So I will give you a few examples of the steps in the process to creating what they would call a Zap. But there's also integration. So this screenshot here, the little boxes there are some tools that Todoist, which we mentioned just before, the task list system. What task list or what Todoist integrates with straight away. So I could link the two things immediately together. Because of that standard data system, it understands it, I can link the two. However, I can only really do one step in that process, and it's information from here to here. There's not much in the way of custom specifics in there. So if you want to have a more detailed A to B, you probably use something like Zapier, if this then that. And then a mention for API or a web API, which you might have come across before in terms of the phrases that some people use. Some of the tools that you might be using might say we have API support. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So it's how the two things talk to each other. So very similar to integrations, but it's done in a more code-based way. And normally it would be someone within maybe your web team that would create an API for you. The Zapiers and the if this then that's of the world sort of do that for you, but they help you through the process, which is why I really love those sorts of tools to support us in that process. Okay, so next bit, reviewing and refining workflows. So just let's review over what we've had and where we want to go. So that old process that we had, we've got those 3 or 4, because we included Asana in that, but we haven't really committed to it, into just Asana. Loads more of those benefits with Asana, the automation. So yes, I wanted to get rid of the Excel, but actually I could automate from Asana to Excel. So if I still needed an Excel spreadsheet, I could move from A to B. There are a few other tools in there. So some of you will recognize Zoom as the video hosting platform, the video conferencing suite. You could actually set up a Zoom within Asana. You can link Asana with Zoom. You can have Asana inside Zoom. Can you see where we're starting to have integrations? But you could also automate as well, because automation again is including the integration bit as well. So I've gone from using 4 different things to one thing, but having that integrate or automate into different programs if I need them. You know, I might not want to use Excel ever again for this particular workflow, but I do have that as an option if I want to automate that process. Okay, so having a think about what you've just drawn out for your workflow, how you might be able to think, right, well, actually, in an ideal world, and if you don't know if the tool does the automation or the integration yet, don't worry about that too much right now. Just think about, in an ideal world, could A automate with B? Could A integrate with B? And then we can figure out the rest later. But if you have the idea of what you want to automate, something normally is available that you can link the two together. It's very rare that there will be a software or a program that won't automate or integrate with something. And you know, hopefully that's part of the solution. So I mentioned Zapier or Zapier. Free version gives you, I think, up to 5 Zaps, which are the connections, if you will. So rather than integration, this is the automation bit. So 5 link things, so 5 sets of things that you want to link together. And then you get 100 connections, 100 sort of bits of data points spinning from A to B. And then you can do a pay for version. So that's just the free version in itself. So you could always test the water just to see if there was a system within that workflow that you thought, actually, I'll just have a play about with this and test it. You can test as part of your free systems. And then if you think, well, actually, this is really good, the pro packages are on like a sliding scale, depending on how much you use them. So Zapier uses the phrase workflow. So can you see how we need to understand all those different bits of the workflow, the process? So thinking about the workflow that you want to create, there's some examples there. So, you know, it's suggesting what the most popular things you want to create. And what I'll do is I've shared some examples of what links with what, and there's just a few different scenarios that I think might be relevant to you all on this session today. So Zapier understands 3 bits of info that it needs before it can automate something. It needs to understand what app you want to use. And when we say app within Zapier, we mean app, program, tool, software, something that you log into that you want to get data from. And then there's a trigger, and then there's an action. So I'll just go through those steps so you understand those. And very similar to whatever sort of third-party automation tool you use, that sort of logic is always the same. So we'll go through that, and it's a kind of transferable knowledge for depending on what platform you're on. Okay, so for the first bit, we're talking about apps. So what program do you want to link to each other? So for the example of Todoist, I might want to link Todoist to my Pomodoro, which was my Pomodoro app. For those of you who met me last time, I talked around time management things. So Pomodoro is one of my favorite time management systems. Pomodoro is my Pomodoro system that I use. So I want Todoist and Pomodoro to talk to each other. Now, I'm lucky in the fact that they are an integration that is available between the two. So I could just choose integration, but I might actually want to choose those apps to do different things. I might want to add in different triggers. Depending on X scenario, I want them to do this. So that's where the if this, then that comes in. That's where they named themselves. If this, then this. So trigger, so you've got your app, so say, okay, I want to pick MailChimp, for example. That's the app, so app event or app trigger, if what? So what is the thing that is going to trigger the workflow? So I've got a few examples I'll run you through in a sec, but this example on the screen here could be an app, could be a program, or it could be an RSS feed. So it might be information in from somewhere else. It might be based on a schedule. So every first Monday of the month, do this particular process. So could you understand how that would be really exciting to use? Things that you normally have to do manually on the first of every month, you might actually be able to automate. So this is where the trigger would be the schedule rather than the app. And then I mentioned webhook or API before, web API webhook. The Zap is based on a webhook. So if the program isn't supported, if the app isn't supported by something like Zapier, you might want to create your own. Or if you're a business that's using bespoke software, generally you'll have a webhook into something or an API. So that's with the premium package. So that's not part of the free version, but if you did want to have a look at it, I think they have a 14-day trial of the premium version if it's the first time you're using it. So have a look at those if that's important to you. So we've got the trigger, we've chosen the app, we've chosen the trigger. We next want to say, what is the action? What is, if this scenario is correct, then what is the action? What do we want it to do? Do we want it to link with another app? So in that example, when I have a task, I want it to spit out a bit of information into my maybe Asana board. So do those two together. Or built-in tools within Zapier, some examples, adding in a different step. So you might have an if this then that. So if someone fills in a form and they say yes, they go into this system. If they say no, they go into this system. You might add in a delay. So if someone has sent your contact us email address a particular bit of information, you could have a delay before then you do the next step in the process. You could filter, you could format, and then also all of those apps as well. So you can really drill down. You can see this isn't just an integrating two things into each other. This is really getting into the nitty gritty of what we want it to do, multiple steps in the process. If you want multiple steps in the process, you might have an A versus B, or you might have a series of things. So in one situation, I'm going to send this bit of data to multiple places. So let's bring that alive and let's look at some examples now. So workflow to promo data. So a client recently came to me and said, we want to understand how we automate or integrate our social media. So they wanted to take some data. So that's where the calculator represents some data. They wanted some data like their financial reports. They wanted to make it look sexy. So that's where Canva comes into the conversation. Nice little template, put some little graphs in, add some data in, beautiful. And then what do we want to do? We want to schedule some posts to go out on their specific accounts of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So to automate that process, we've got different steps here, haven't we? So the yellow arrow represents a manual process, a human intervention in the process. So that was me thinking, right, okay, well, the manual bit is taking the data and making it look sexy in something like Canva. That's going to have a human element to it. The black is the integration. So Canva and Buffer talk to each other. So I can click on Buffer. Buffer's a social media scheduling tool. So I can log into my Buffer account. I have this create new post for social. I can then choose from Buffer via the integration that's set up. Any of the images that we've created on Canva, we can pull straight into Buffer. So if you've ever had to use Canva, download, upload onto social media, you can integrate the two depending on what that tool is you're using. So that's why I absolutely love Buffer. Buffer integrates with lots of different things. And then you can see that that black bit is the integration. So that's where the two talk to each other. And then Buffer is automating, and its simplest format, that maybe scheduling on a basis. So remember, we just looked at that trigger. If this, then that. If delay, if we have something in the queue, delay until we post. So we schedule Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to go out at different times. We might create different content, and then that's automated over there. We might want to automate it several times so we can schedule within that. So that is a simple automation system that you might already be using, or you might have used at some point. And that's got integration, manual, and automation within its system. So hopefully that's something that everyone can grasp the concept of, even if you haven't used something like that before. So next one then, it is a bit busy, so let's go through that step by step, but the workflow to arrange meetings. So we've got Doodle. Doodle is a little poll system where you can offer to your execs or to the people that you know they need to meet a series of dates, and then they can choose their availability and say, yes, I can do this, 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 and this. I can't do that one. Actually, as a side note for that, Calendly, which is a calendar scheduling system that I'm sure most of you know of, that is actually, I love Calendly. Calendly in itself saves me 3 to 4 hours a week on admin easily. So if you haven't heard of Calendly, check that out. But as a side note, Calendly, for those people who've been using Doodle or a scheduling poll option, Calendly is now starting to do a poll option. They still say it's in beta at the moment, but I've been using it very successfully. It's beautiful. It can also, you can have the option to choose or not where you hold the places in someone's calendar. So if you're managing your exec, you're trying to get a meet in the calendar with some, 3 other people, say, you can send out a poll with Calendly. If you've got that link with their calendar systems, they can actually hold all of those options as dates. And then when it's confirmed which one people want to go for, you can then say, choose this date. It updates everyone's calendars, removes the TBCs on things, and just marks off that one that everyone's gone for. So anyway, yeah. There's a bit of a side note there, but absolutely in love with Calendly, even more now it's doing that poll system. So that Calendly's polls is basically Doodle, but it's all under one system, and there's a few more integrations. So Doodle poll option, we're looking manually at our calendars, as I'm sure you guys do every day. I know I do. Looking manually at the calendar to see what's available. Once we've booked something, it might be manually booked into the Google Calendar, the Outlook calendar, the internal systems calendar. It might be that Doodle and Calendar, sorry, so Outlook or Google, for example, they integrate with Doodle. So once you say, yes, I want to add this to the calendar, yes, that's an integration, add to calendar. If you've linked the two, integration option, under the Doodle options, you can add that as an integration, and that'll add that data straight into that calendar. So that's where the yellow and the block come in. And then the rest is all integrations. So we're not using any automation here. Everything actually already talks to each other. So we don't need to use that third-party software like Zapier, like If This Then That, because all of them talk to each other. I'll put a caveat on that in terms of it's at its simplest. It does link the two together, but the data flows, basically there's one bit of data that flows. So we can't really be more complex. We want to be more complex, we do use those third-party systems, but at its simplest format, and I know it doesn't look it with the arrows, but we're doing lots of back and forwards in integration, because once we've said, okay, calendar, we want to check with Calendly and we want to make an appointment booking. And so Calendly then can integrate with Zoom, so it will automatically send that person, once they've booked, a Zoom link, a Google Meets link, which is the icon in the middle that's represented, or an MS Teams or Microsoft Teams meeting. So you might already be using those. It might be that you've just got a little button that's integrated from Outlook to Zoom, and it's got that little button that says create Zoom meeting. Very similar. That would be an integration where you've installed a plugin at some point and you've linked the two together. So this is all based on simple integration. So it is possible to, in effect, process automatically. I'm trying not to use the word automation there, using the integration systems. So that will basically do it itself. People can look at the polls, they can decide. Once everyone's decided on the polls, there's a particular preference of date for everyone involved. You would potentially manually click yes on that, and the rest would be set up for you. So those integrations are helping automate some of those processes. I'm trying not to use that word automation, but hopefully you're starting to understand the difference between the automation and the integration. So this is a system that is purely based on integrations. So my third example that I wanted to share with you, third and last, so don't worry, there's not too many screens with arrows on, so you're okay. I wanted to show you, as a contrast from a purely integrated system, I wanted to show you a purely automated system as well, using the tool Zapier or Zapier. So workflow to share event sign up data. So I thought, okay, if you're all doing events, or, you just need names of attendees for an event, it might even be, an internal staff conference, for example, you might be using a ticketing software like Eventbrite. Eventbrite loves Zapier, so that is automated straight away. You saw that on one of the screen grabs before. Do you want to do something with Eventbrite? Do you want to do something with all of these other ones as well? So what are we going to do with this? So what we're saying is, if this and that, in the event that app Eventbrite trigger someone signs up for a new ticket for event A, I'm going to tell Zapier, so that's the automation, Zapier is the hub that's making things work. I'm going to tell Zapier to send that data, and this is where Zapier is great, because where we were saying we want to drill down and go into more detail with this, I can say which data points I want to take from Eventbrite and share with other apps, other programs. So we've got Eventbrite, someone signed up to event A, Zapier has then taken that information, it's waited for that trigger has been someone signing up for that event, and then it has done an action based on these 3 app examples. So then Zapier has sent the bespoke options of the data to MailChimp. So we might say for MailChimp, we're only interested in first name, last name, email address, because we're going to sign them up to our event conference email list. Done. Automated straight away. The minute someone has signed up for a ticket, all of this is happening. We might want to link it with HubSpot, our CRM, our customer relations management system, so that they are then a client on our system, for example, or we want to track who within our team is going to what events. Maybe we want to add tags. We can do that as well, depending on what systems we're using. We can tag on MailChimp, we can tag on HubSpot, we can add words to Google Sheets, we can tag things, we can add data at any point in this process. So we go to Eventbrite, we've done the MailChimp list, we've added and updated our CRM system, and then maybe we just want to also have a Google Sheet with name, postal address, and email address, because actually that Google Sheet might be being seen by different people in your team for maybe marketing reasons. Maybe they're going to send out all the promotional literature for the event. Maybe that's actually going to an external provider who's going to do certificates for an event, maybe. So maybe they need those details of where they're going to post them and what they've maybe completed or what event they're going to go to. So you can see that this is automated. So yes, it might take a little bit of time to set up, but if you have something similar like this workflow, where every time someone you're getting maybe an email automation from Eventbrite saying such and such has signed up to your event, are you still doing all of these processes manually? And I would say this is a perfect type of workflow to look at automating, or in the previous example, integrating and seeing if the things integrate. So if looking at your workflow, so we'll go on to that now, look back at your example digital workflow. How could you refine it? How could you tweak something? Do you think, actually, having looked at Liz's examples, I reckon Eventbrite automates with something, or Eventbrite actually integrates with something. Eventbrite integrates with a lot. Eventbrite actually integrates with Zoom, so you can have the two talking to each other. So if you're running events or kind of internal team meetings or conferences, might be actually you want to do that all on Zoom and use Eventbrite as the ticketing process. Eventbrite does free tickets, so even if it's for an internal event, you might want to use an external third-party system to do some of that, because that helps you in the automation process. So that's where you might want to start re-answering that question that we started with around what would you love to have help you in that workflow. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds to just think about that workflow and see if there's any markers, any steps in that process that you think, oh, wow, well, I'm doing that all the time, Liz. So what I want to do is I want to take that Eventbrite system and I want to stick it into Google Sheet, because I've actually been doing everything into an Excel spreadsheet. It might be you want to do an Excel sheet. Now, the trick with that is it needs to be MS 365. It can't be the installed program on your computer, because it needs to have access to the internet for everywhere else to be able to access it. Automation needs to have internet capability. It needs to be linked in some way via the online world. So you'll notice all of these systems are in the cloud, or they have that API which links it in with other systems via an internet option. So we're not looking at Excel 2013, which just installed on your computer. We're looking at things like Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Excel, or Google Sheets, Google Word documents, for example, Google Docs. anything that's virtual that lives in the cloud. Okie dokie. So hopefully you're starting to see certain systems, certain steps in that process that you're like, oh my God, Liz, like, why have I been doing this like manual process for years? So hopefully that can then start to be the little nugget you think, right, how can I do this? So I would say if you've got a system there that's anything like those examples, I would check out, first of all, if you need an integration or an automation. So the integration, remember, is the one step bit. The automation is a bit more complex. And again, I would always try and draw that out, pen and a piece of paper, just draw it out so you can kind of mentally think about those stages. That will really help you also explain that to the other people in your team if you need to get buy-in as well. And then I would think integration, okay, actually it's only a simple A to B, so integration might work. Go into the program or the app at the step first in the process. So we had that example, Eventbrite was first. I would go into Eventbrite and look under the settings and look for integrations and see what integrations it already integrates with. If your step 2 app isn't on that list, generally you'll need an automation. So I hope that clears that bit up of which one do I go to first. I'd do a little bit of research, go to the first one, see if the integrations options are available for your tool that you want to go to. Otherwise, it will be an automation because you'll need that third-party system to understand and link the two together. Going right back to the definitions at the start, it's about this default understood format of the data. So that's sometimes why integrations are suitable for certain platforms to be linked together. Okay, right, so brilliant. So have a think about your process, have a think about your workflow, think about what could be integrated and what could be automated. So I wanted to give you a few takeaways to think about. So hopefully you've started to get the idea of how to do a digital workflow review. You've started to think about what might be able to be automated, what might be able to be an integration. I would also add in 2 suggestions to think about away from this session off the back of the next bit. Okay, so could a comms policy help? Once you've so the example of my Asana thing before, where I was using 4 different programs, and actually Asana was the only thing I needed to get into the habit of. I needed to get everyone to have Asana as the default. Where do I need to put this, Liz? I need to put it in Asana. So a comms policy, especially if you're within a big team, a big organization, understanding who do you need to communicate with, who needs access to what files do you need to share, with who, and in with what format. So it might be actually a little basic policy on that might help. You might already have a comms policy in place. I do a lot of work with teams around email policy. It's very similar. How are we going to communicate with each other? How are we going to share data? If you want to share a team to-do list, where does that go? Have you got the default? Do you all know the answer is Asana? Do you all know the answer is MS Teams? That might be worth, alongside you doing the piece around the digital review, integration and automation, also thinking about the comms policy as well. Okay, so I'll add that to your list. And then team workflows. Now, this is something I've created based on the getting things done method. I've done a screen grab of this for you, and I've put that in the downloadable document. So either take a screenshot now, or it will be a reference item later in the PDF download. So I find this really helpful with teams because I think sometimes you need a flow chart or a workflow to work through what the workflow is going to be, especially if you're starting new projects or implementing change. You know, if you're working with a lot of change management type people, they'll start to get you to think about this. So hopefully preempting stuff. So one of the first questions, and this goes back to a lot of stuff we've said in this session already, just to wrap it up, is it currently in the right platform? Is that bit of data, should it be on the internal Outlook calendar for 300 people going to a staff conference? Or is it something actually by moving it onto Eventbrite and ticketing it for free, getting people to sign up, I can have a big automation in that process? Is the current thing doing the job? And that's where that digital review is worth looking back at. Yes or no? No, move it into a different platform, discuss it with X, delegate to X. So depending on what that scenario is, depends on what you want to do next. Does it require next steps? Yes or no? So for those of you who are used to the getting things done method, you'll notice some similarities in this. Does it require you to action anything? Yes, pass it on. Does it need a bit of data added to it? Does it have deadlines? And does it have a specific time to complete the work? Is it scoping a timetable? Is it a calendar? So that just in itself, thinking about what that concept, what that new item on the to-do list might be, that might help your teams decide what sort of systems you work with. And you'll notice that's a nod to the getting things done method as well. Okie dokie. So that comms policy and also team workflows, you'll have a kind of think about and review. Now bob that in your document to download as well. So having to think about action points. So I want you to spend a couple of minutes now. It's all great and well, like listening to Liz chat for an hour, and I learned loads of stuff and I thought it was really interesting, but I want you to now turn that into action points. So what are the actions you're going to take off this session? You might have a workflow straight away that you know you can integrate or automate into a system straight off. You can go, okay, I'm going to go and ask such and such, I'm going to get IT to open up this particular bit of window, and we're going to use this system and it's going to work. Or it's actually even just going back to basics and thinking, okay, what systems are we currently using? Are we using them to the best of our ability? Are we using them to the optimal? Is there integrations that actually the systems we already have access to are working with what we want them to? Maybe there are integrations available that you're not using. So now you understand what the words mean. Hopefully that will help you delve a little bit deeper into the systems that you have, the systems you have access to, and actually maybe decide whether you want to get rid of some or not. Especially if, I would have been paying for that Todoist system, for example. If I wasn't going to use it anymore and I was going to use Asana, I need to make sure that I get rid of those, but also get rid of financial implications, if that's relevant as well. So thinking about your action points, I want you to take a couple of minutes now just to think about what your takeaways will be. So what 3 things will you learn, will you take away, will you action off the back of this session? Is it going to be something that you want to ask someone? Is it a bit of data that you need to find out before you feel like you can go on to next steps? Is it that you've got a big old list starting to grow of like, right, I'm going to check the integrations on all of these programs that we've got available? So hopefully that will help you understand a little bit further in what you need to do next. Superb. Okie dokie. So while you're doing that, I want to just spend a couple of minutes just to share with you some of the things that are kind of next steps with me in effect. So there's a few free things, there's a few things where we could work together in terms of bespoke stuff. I did mention right at the very start, I'll share my contact details, so I'll make sure I'll do all of that now while you're thinking about your action points to take away. So I just wanted to mention team sessions because we've just started to scratch the surface, and I feel like I don't want to just dump you in it and leave you to it. If it is something that you want to work with as a team, or you want to be the one leading that conversation within the team, then I do actually run team sessions for organizations around productivity, around reviewing your digital workflow, doing what we've done together in this session, looking at integrations, looking at automations, reclaiming that time, energy and focus. So if you do want to get in touch, please do just let us know what the targets are, what the plan is, maybe some of the examples that you've worked through in this session and gone, Liz, I just want to get some help in. And we also do one-to-one sessions as well, so if you specifically want some support, we can sort that out for you as well. And then I wanted to share with you, look at that, oh look, I'm almost wearing, the hair's different, I'm almost wearing the same t-shirt, there we go, different colored lipstick. But I send out 3 times a week, my productivity tips update. It's free. It's an email newsletter system. It's automated to some extent, similar to MailChimp. We use a system called Feedout. So in the downloadable, there'll be a link to there to sign up. Please sign up for it. I think it would be really helpful in terms of keeping up your motivation with the processes you're going through. But also, I am a lover of productivity. Each email shares a productivity tip, a productivity tool, a little story. We'll get to know each other a little bit better. I'm always at the end of the email if you want to hit reply, and I have some great feedback from our subscribers as well. So I'd love you to join us for that. It is free. It's a nice way to keep in touch. And I think a bit of an insight into how my brain works as well. So please do feel free to join if you're not already on the list. And hopefully, if you've got any questions, you can hit reply on that, and I could delve a little bit deeper into some learning opportunities. We also have an online e-learning platform. You can find out more about that if you sign up to there, but then also I'll stick a link in the PDF as well. So you've got access to all of the things, and then you can cherry pick what you're most interested in. So our time is up. So I hope you've been beavering away, figuring out what your actions are going to be. My contact details are here. The best platforms to get me on messaging wise are Twitter and LinkedIn. Please come find me on LinkedIn. It's Liz Hardwick. It's pretty, I think it's the same photo. So hopefully you can find me dead simple. The website for the training sessions and workshops we deliver is digyenable.co.uk. My speaking side of my work is lizhardwick.co.uk. And if you want to send us an email, if you've got any like little niggly questions, or you've got an example and you've got a bit stuck, I'm happy to answer any questions over email. Email's the best place if you've got questions and answers, because I can hit reply and then add in different links and screenshots and things if you do get stuck. Happy to answer any questions for any of you at ES Tech 2022 today. Liz@digyenable.co.uk if you want to get in touch. It's been absolutely great to spend the past hour talking about automations, integrations and workflow. I hope it sparked a few conversations that you want to have. I hope it's got you to think a little bit more strategically about the processes that you're doing. And hopefully I will see you again at another conference and maybe another ES Tech in future. Hopefully see you either virtually or in person, something else again soon. But I wish you the absolute best on your productivity journey. And again, any questions, do just get in touch. Thank you very much for joining us for this session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Have a good one, everyone.